Good morning, guys. Nice to see you again, and hopefully, we will come back pretty soon if we stay home. Okay. So today we are going to start working on the Roman Empire on chapter 9, lesson 3, and hopefully we will be working at our normal old system as we do in class. We will be reading. I will be explaining. If you have questions, make sure you write them in the platform and I will be answering your questions. Okay, we are on page 292, the Roman Empire, one of the biggest empires that we have been seeing already in the other lessons. We've seen that the Roman Empire is a very, very strong empire and they have the biggest army. You will see now how they came to be the biggest empire. So let's get started. The Roman Empire. Like his great uncle Julius Caesar, Augustus was a strong, skilled leader. Beginning with his rule, Rome was to enjoy Pax Romana, or Roman peace. This time of peace for the Romans lasted for more than 200 years, from 27 BC to AD 180. During this period, the Roman Empire continued to grow in size. The empire expanded to include lands all around the Mediterranean Sea. For this reason, the sea became known as the Roman Lake. As you can see on page 293, you will see the map. All what is in purple belongs to Roman. The Mediterranean Sea, you can see it's in the center, and that's why it was called the Roman Lake. Governing the empire. Millions of people speaking many languages and following different customs lived in the empire. The Roman Empire required a strong government and one that the people would accept. Augustus carefully chose people to serve as governors for the provinces. You need to remember that this big empire needed a lot of control, and one people wouldn't be able to control all this land. So what happened is that he hired people, governors, to keep track of everything that was happening in each little province, in each little city. Citizenship gave people special protection. One law said that citizens could not be forced to speak against themselves in law courts. That we still have it now. Right now, you cannot speak against yourself in court. So we still use it. These and other principles or rules set up by the Romans are important parts of the legal system of many countries today. So we still use it. The Romans were the first to take a census or account of country's people. The census helped to make sure that the Roman citizens paid any taxes or gave any military service that they owed. Still now we do it. We still take census. Before everything now happened, INEGI was counting everybody in their houses. So we still do a census, okay? Under the early republic, the Roman army had been made up only of citizens who owned land. Roman leaders believed that they would fight harder to defend Rome than landless people would. As the borders of Rome grew, more soldiers were needed, so the army was open to volunteers. By about 20 BC, the Roman Empire had a standing army of some 300,000 soldiers. Can you imagine that number? Imagine feeding all these people, giving uniforms, giving shoes, giving everything they need. It was impossible. Most were well-trained professionals whose skills made the Roman army one of the most successful military forces in history. The army's main job was to defend the empire's borders. Many soldiers were sent to regions in Central and Eastern Europe. Next page, 294. Other important army posts were in Britain, Egypt, Syria, Asia Minor, and Northern Africa. In addition to their military role, Roman soldiers built army posts throughout the empire. They also built about 50,000 miles of roadways. The roads allowed the Roman army to move quickly and make the exchange of goods and ideas possible all over the empire. This led to cultural diffusion or the spread of ideas among the provinces. Now, you need to remember that they have such a big um, area of land that it was impossible for them to send a message from one side to the other. So, what they were doing is taking a long time. So they decided to start building roadways. Roadways are the roads where we go from here to Cananea, for example. If we don't go on the roadway and we go along the roadway, we would take a long time because of all the rocks, because of the rivers, because of the hills. In the roadway, you go one way and that's it. That's the same thing that they did before. They built these roadways to keep communication faster. Okay, so they were the first ones to do it. The splendor of Rome. Rome was the capital of the Roman Empire. It was also the empire's largest city, with more than 4 million people. No other city was so splendid. Augustus ordered new government, offices, libraries, temples, and public baths to be built, and existing buildings to be repaired. I found Rome a city of bricks, and I left it a city of marble, Augustus said, because he built many, many, many buildings, beautiful buildings that you can see on page 295. In the city center stood huge government buildings called basilicas. New temples and other buildings rose beside them. On a stretch of level ground near the Tiber River was the Forum, a public place where people could meet for business or recreation. Merchants sold fresh meats, vegetables, pottery, clothes, and luxury goods from the eastern provinces. Public notices were carved in stone there, and papyrus scrolls were filled with writing. You need to remember that papyrus is the same thing as paper, okay? Ideas from Greek architecture could be seen in many buildings. Roman builders admired the beauty of Greek architecture and used Greek styles of columns in their own buildings. They also used arcs and the Etruscans had. If you look at the picture on page 295, you will see all these great buildings that they had, and as they are telling you, if you see, these are the arcs that the Etruscans used. So they copied it from them too. So they used many things. They used the Greek language. They used the arcs of the Etruscans. So they all the ideas were not of their own. Okay, so we need to admire that from them. It says Roman architects later added ideas of their own, such as domes. A famous example is a building known as a Pantheon. A Pantheon means Temple of all the Gods, built by the Emperor Hadrian in AD 125. The Pantheon features a dome that is more than 141 feet in height, like the dome we have at Colegio Naiz. Okay, that is a dome, and they were the first ones to do it. So the first dome was called a Pantheon. Okay. Some of the new buildings were theaters and sports arenas where Romans could enjoy entertainment. The largest arena was the Colosseum, which could hold 50,000 people. It was built by the Emperor Vespasian in about AD 72. At the Colosseum, Romans watched battles between gladiators. A gladiator was a slave or a prisoner who fought, often to death, for the entertainment of the citizens, which there I don't find it very funny, but it was entertainment for them before. They would get a slave, they would put it into the Colosseum, and then they would put an animal, a lion, a tiger, to fight with this slave. Of course, who was going to win? The animal. So that's why it says that these slaves would fight until death. Because of its splendor, the leaders of provinces in different parts of the empire wanted to remodel their cities after Rome. As far away as Britain and Syria, people built arenas, basilicas, baths, forums, libraries, and temples. All across the empire, the Romans also built aqueducts. An aqueduct is a system of bridges and canals used to carry water to a city. The Roman aqueducts carry water from faraway rivers and mountain streams to the cities. So they didn't want only Rome to be this big, beautiful city with all luxuries that they had. And they also had water, running water. Well, they built aqueducts to bring the water from the mountain to the city. This is the mountain and this is a city. What they did is they built aqueducts, they like pipes from the river to the cities so that they could all have running water, okay? So, Rome's cultural life. Rome often looked to Greece for other cultural ideas besides architecture. Roman artists, sculptors, and writers adopted the Greek styles. The ideas of Greek philosophers such as Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates also spread to Rome. In fact, many wealthy Romans hired Greek scholars to teach their children. Remember, we already talked about that lesson. We saw the ideas of Socrates, Plato, and we saw how each one were students. Now, many people in Rome started hiring their students to teach kids. So you can see how important the Greek culture was for them too. Roman artists and writers created works that brought out feelings of patriotism or love of country among the Roman people. Augustus especially wanted an epic that would tell the story of Rome's heroic past. The poet Virgil was asked to write it. Virgil wrote the Aeneid, a story about the legendary Trojan hero Aeneas, who escaped during the last hours of the Trojan War. Remember the Trojan War? We already talked about it. So he was one of them that escaped from it. Aeneas finds a new home on the Italian peninsula. In Virgil's retelling of Roman history, Aeneas is the ancestor of Augustus. He is appointed by the gods to create the people of Rome. The Aeneid stirred the patriotic feelings of Romans everywhere. Because of this, it was used for many years as a textbook in Roman schools. Just as we have a social studies book, they had the book of Aeneas as a textbook. So it was a very important writing. Other Roman writers also made important contributions. Among these were the poets Horace and Ovid and the historians Livy and Tacitus. Other important works of Roman literature included speeches by Cicero and letters by Pliny the Younger. The language of the Romans also helped bring together the diverse peoples of the empire. As Roman soldiers traveled through the provinces, they spoke and wrote in the Latin language. Latin came to be used in government and education in all the Roman provinces. The Latin alphabet came from the one used by the Etruscans. Again, they are copying something from the Etruscans. English is partly Latin. In addition, the Latin alphabet is used to write in English and many other languages today. Well, that is our lesson for the Roman Empire. If you have any questions, make sure you write in your platform and I will be answering questions. See you on the next lesson.